Ambry Thomas, an outside cornerback that played at Michigan, is the 49ers' third round pick. He's 6 feet tall, 191 pounds, and he's got them 32-inch arms that the team seems to love. We're going to take a look at 6 plays in our Patreon scouting report that give you a feel for the type of cornerback that Ambry Thomas will be in the NFL. And we're going to start with something he did often in college. He did it 122 times, playing press man in Don Brown's defense at Michigan. But it's going to be a press man rep with him on the boundary. That's going to indicate kind of what the Niners are going to expect him to do out on the edge if he's going to play in the 49er scheme.
Yeah, so he's down there at the bottom. Played almost exclusively on the right side at Michigan. You know, there's some times where he would come. We'll see actually a play or two where he ends up inside because of kind of the concept they're in. But yeah, mostly hanging out on the right side here. And so they're going to end up playing kind of like a 2-deep zone pressure concept, but he's really matched up one-on-one here, right? So he's got this receiver that he's isolated against, and this is kind of, I think, a pretty typical play that we see from him on these vertical routes, right? So it does a good job pressing him kind of wide, right? Getting close to the sideline, really limiting the space, and then ends up finding the ball and making a play on it, right? So just saw him, a lot of his targets came on these type of routes, and just these vertical routes where he's isolated, one-on-one coverage. And so this was a pretty typical, I think, play for him on this type of stuff.
He earns the incomplete signal here. That would not be a drink in the Better Rivals drinking game, but this is where you do get to see the benefit of his long arms. Not only because of his jump, but because he is able to extend his arms and make a play on the ball because of the fact that he's got an arm length or a wingspan that puts him in the 80th percentile. And so that is why the long arms are important. It gives him just a bigger radius to disrupt this pass, which he is able to do in this case. Now we get to the second play. It's another press man snap, but in this case, you're going to see him do really, really well playing outside leverage on a route that he just sticks to the hip pocket of the receiver.
Yeah, so we'll let this one run again before we start rewinding. But yeah, you see, so in cover one, which is, something that Michigan played a ton of when they're in their man coverage stuff, right? So you're getting this safety here is your one that's rotating back as your deep middle of the field safety, everybody underneath in man coverage. And so usually, especially with this type of split, right, from the receiver where he's, he's not wide out on the numbers or anything like that. And then he's also going to take this inside release. And so as a cornerback, once you get that, you're going to play outside leverage, right? Because I have help with this safety to the middle. So if he takes it from here and kind of runs up the field, breaks to the post, that's against my leverage, but I know I've got this safety that's right here hanging out to be able to kind of help me with that. So it's important that you keep that outside leverage because it's really the stuff where he comes and breaks back outside, right? Either the out or the corner, where you have no help. And so those are the things that you want to take away. And he does an excellent job of that here, right? So he keeps the outside leverage. The receiver tries to give him a little inside fake there and get to the corner, but just completely walls it off, right? Keeps that leverage, and the safety actually is able, as a result, to get over the top. And I think he picks this off. Didn't really pay attention to the end of the play, honestly, other than Thomas. But yeah, it just an incredible job. And there were multiple examples of him doing this type of thing, playing cover one, keeping that outside leverage, walling defenders off, and really preventing them from even having an opportunity to make a play on the ball.
He uses his leverage really well here, and as a result, it looks like he's basically running the route for the receiver. And this is where you can see his straight line speed. The guy's fast.
Yep.
And he's got the requisite speed to hold up to NFL wide receivers when he's running in a straight line. I mean, he's in that hip pocket entirely. Yep. He completely walls off the receiver. Everything about this play is exactly how you draw it up from the corner's perspective and from the safety too. I mean, he's in that kind of safety area where he's going to make a play on the ball, not quite yet to the numbers. So Ambry Thomas does a great job here with that route. Oh, he dropped it.
Dropped it. Shake my head.
Look at that. That's his fault. I'm glad we didn't draft the safety. So we get to the third play, and the Niners do like to ask their corners to tackle in space, and this is what he can do effectively. He is a willing tackler, likes to get his nose in. This is actually a play against Jerry Jeudy. He opted out last year, and so the year before is really all the snaps that we're looking at for 2019. But Jerry Jeudy has a move that he basically murdered people with in college, and we call it the dead leg. When we watched film on him, we talked a lot about it. He tries to dead leg Ambry Thomas on this play, and it does not work. It backfires. Jerry Jeudy has a dead leg as opposed to doling out the dead leg in this scenario.
Yeah, so Judy's your motion guy here. He's going to come. He's in motion. They're going to throw him a little screen here. And so what you're going to get is you can see already, right, this slot corner, these guys are going to exchange. So he's going to come back here as a safety. The guy that's deep right now is going to come down kind of into the slot here. And what they want to do from Alabama is I think, is it Devontae Smith that might be here? Whoever it is. Anyway, this outside corner, or receiver, excuse me, is going to kind of come up, sell him like he's going to block, but he really wants to come in here and kind of seal off this safety, right? So you end up with Thomas in this one-on-one situation in open space where it's just him and Jeudy. And this is exactly, I mean, as Alabama's drawing this up, right, this is exactly what they want. They want Jeudy, one of their best athletes, isolated with a cornerback on the outside in space. And Thomas does a great job here. There's the dead leg, right? Tries to give him that dead leg burst up inside. And Thomas does a great job. You know, it's not maybe Elijah Molden-esque in terms of blowing it up, but look, man, as a cornerback, especially on the outside, you just need to get him to the ground. Does a great job. You know, doesn't really give up anything after contact. Gets him to the ground, and that's all you need. And yeah, I think just a very a physical player overall, and again, he played a lot of press and kind of wants to be more physical with guys, but is a very willing and capable tackler. I think he only missed about 4 tackles over the course of his career.
Yeah, look, it's not pretty, but he gets him down. Yeah. He maintains his leverage, doesn't let Jeudy go outside. He's playing to his help. It's a great tackle. Brings him down, rides him out. No dead leg for this guy. We get to the fourth play, and this is where we start to get to some of the stuff where we have not necessarily concerns, but things that Ambry Thomas is going to need to work on if he's going to be a consistent, reliable starter in the NFL. The first is really his trouble navigating congested areas. He played a lot of man snaps, and you know, if you've watched our videos on how to beat man coverage, you're going to see a lot of crossers, you're going to see a lot of bunch formations, you're going to see a lot of things that are going to make it difficult for the corner to track the wide receiver. And in those situations, Thomas did have a penchant to kind of either not navigate that kind of just area really, really well, and ultimately left some space for that wide receiver to get a reception, and that's what we're going to see here.
Yeah, and this was an issue. There were a couple of plays that were basically exactly like this. So again, he's the inside most slot guy. This is one of those plays because, you know, over here on the right side, right, they don't split out any receivers going with a closed tight end there. And so he comes over and mans up with one of the receivers over here on the inside of the slot, and they're going to try to get that guy on a wheel route, right? So we'll let it run here a little bit and then come back and talk about it. But he had issues again with the wheel route from the slot out of this type of look. There were times on more of a mesh type concept, right, where they're trying to get the crossing routes underneath there, and he was having to weave through linebackers and stuff, and just didn't always really do a great job of that and taking the optimal path. And so what you can see here, right, is how they're set up is important, you know, in terms of the 3 defensive backs that they've got over here, because they're aligned this way to try to prevent this exact sort of thing happening, right? Indiana motions in and does a shift to get these guys tighter, a little bit more bunched together here. And a lot of times teams are going to want to take advantage, right, of all of this space. They've got the field side here. The wide side is where all these receivers are aligned to. And so you get this guy is up tightest to the line of scrimmage. So he's the one that doesn't really have to worry about going around guys, right? He's going to make contact initially, and he's Thomas is aligned a little bit deeper than for exactly this reason, right? To go over the top. But then the same thing is here, right? This cornerback's playing off, giving up this space here, this path for Thomas to be able to work through, and he ends up trying to undercut it. And this is where he gets lost, right? As soon as he goes underneath, it's over. Like there's no chance that he's going to be able to recover on this route and make any sort of play on it. So this type of thing, just, not taking really the optimal route through these more heavily trafficked areas was kind of a problem for him.
Yeah, and the idea there is you want to stay over the top, because if you're going to give up a reception, you want to give up the underneath reception so you can go rally and tackle. By trying to undercut it, you're basically hoping that inside receiver is going to run an underneath route. Because if you go under that guy and that guy runs deep, as he does here, you're completely out of phase. You're already following him, and you're at a disadvantage. And that's exactly what happens here. He tries to go under him, and then that's what allows that receiver to get right past him. And if that's a better ball, maybe it's a touchdown. But it's Indiana after all. So now we get to our next play. And this is where you start to see his coverage ability when he can't get hands on a receiver, because he is a physical corner. He does like to, mix it up downfield. But if he can't do that all that well, then you do have receivers that are able to get a step on him and get some deep receptions.
So back in that familiar spot on the outside of the right. And yeah, so you see the receiver gives him, a little bit of move here. Doesn't really get hands on. He kind of like, he gets that one hand, but gives up the separation here. And this was, mentioned earlier, right, that he has a lot of plays that are on these vertical routes. And for a guy that saw so much of these, he gave up more than you would like, right? And I think a lot of it comes down to one of two things. There are plays like this, right, where he doesn't get the hands on early and then struggles to kind of fully be able to recover and doesn't do a great job of ever really finding the ball, or even here when he's more of in a trail and you don't necessarily want him looking back too early to be able to find the ball in the air. Doesn't do a great job of trying to play the pocket either, right? He kind of gets stuck in this in-between. So once he's behind here, he needs to just kind of continue playing through and wait for that receiver to show him his hands there and try to kind of play through that pocket of the receiver and break that ball up. But right here, even though he hasn't fully recovered, you see him start to look back. That's what allows that kind of even late separation there for the receiver, and just doesn't have a chance to really do too much about it. So you saw stuff like this where he doesn't, the ball skills aren't really what you would like. And then the other one, which we, didn't have an example of for this, but he did kind of struggle in some of these situations on these routes against bigger receivers too. There were times where he kind of got bodied and you see some bigger receivers go up over the top of him to make some plays. But yeah, for a guy that saw a lot of vertical routes, and this was kind of, the thing that he was also best at, a lot of his positive plays were on this stuff. He gave up more of this downfield stuff than I think you would like.
He allowed a 20-plus yard reception in 6 of his 13 games in 2019. For context, on the other side, Lavert Hill, his co-partner in crime, allowed 3 plays on the other side. So just gives you some context about the frequency with which he gives up those deep receptions. But then we get to the last bit, and we talked about this one on the pod a little bit, and that's his change of direction. We've talked about his straight line speed, and he is an athletic guy. He can run in a straight line, but his change of direction and sometimes his feet are going to prevent him from sticking close to receivers when they're breaking inside or out, which is why he's likely going to project as an outside corner, and despite his size, not going to be someone who moves into the slot.
Yeah, so again, at our familiar right outside cornerback position here, and this is, 3rd and 9 play, and so Michigan, getting a little bit more, I guess, creative in their coverages, going to play kind of more of a bracket style, like match quarters type coverage here. But really what it means for him is that he's almost certainly going to be matched up one-on-one with this outside receiver, right? Or depending on how they release out of the bunch, the guy who stays outside. And so really what they're going to try to do out of this bunch offensively is, this guy's going to end up just kind of coming in here. He's going to clear out and run more of a vertical route, and then they're going to try to get this outside guy to take this outside release, get Thomas to be the one that commits to him, but then he's going to kind of come back with a little follow route there and break back on the inside. And so really what you need to see from Thomas here is the ability to get out of breaks quickly and kind of close some of that space, because he's starting it at really a poor position. He's got, outside leverage right on the bunch. He's wide of these guys, and so the inside breaking stuff is going to be where he's most vulnerable, and so you want to see the ability to kind of get out of a break quickly and close some of this space, and he's just never really able to do it, right? We let it run full here, and just kind of gives up an easy completion. And it's really right here. You can see kind of out of this break, nice big step, like his arms flailing. It's just kind of slow for him to get going again once he's trying to kind of move toward the receiver and close that space. And so, again, there weren't a ton, and this is kind of the thing with Thomas, right, largely, I think there is a ton of unknown about him because we just don't have overall a large volume of snaps to go on. And so there aren't a ton of targets that he got in the intermediate level that you can really have to go on. But stuff like this popped up a decent amount on those few snaps that we have to go off. So it's one of those things that you do want to kind of keep an eye on as he tries to make this transition to the NFL and be aware of what he's doing in some of these similar situations at the NFL level. Because right now, I think it's an area that we're not clear on and that kind of has a little concern.
Bonus points if you're watching this video and recognize that route concept from the Shanahan kind of family of plays. It's called arches, sometimes called follow. It's great. Everyone uses it because it's a really, really good concept. It's fun. But that's Ambry Thomas, a corner who, didn't have a lot of experience in college, only 57 targets in his entire college career, but one that has the potential to start at outside corner if he gets a little seasoning and is able to improve on his ability to really kind of match with people coming inside. But he's got a good base to work with when you're talking about his press man experience, his ability to cover vertical routes, his straight line speed, and those super long arms that the Niners seem to love. Overall, understand the pick, understand why Adam Peters really, really liked him, and I'm excited to see how he develops with the 49ers. That does it for the scouting report for Ambry Thomas. Thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for buying us a beer. We didn't drink one this time, but maybe we will next time. And as always, go Niners.